Hi there, I'm Uncle Joel with Pen and Reel. So I just got back from seeing the new version of The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss. Now, when I first heard this movie was being made, and especially when I heard the description of it, I had very low expectations. The basic plot description is that a man discovers the secret to invisibility and just uses it to become the ultimate stalker. And this is something we had already seen before with Kevin Bacon's Hollow Man, and frankly, that one wasn't very good. And so seeing a new iteration of a concept that wasn't very good to begin with made me, it made me assume that this was just going to be a bad movie. It didn't seem like anything that was going to really stand out as worthwhile or more than, just a kind of a stalker horror type movie. So when it was released, I just kind of wrote it off, didn't really have any interest in seeing it, until I saw a few reviews saying it was pretty good. So I figured, you know what, I'll see for myself. I'll give it a shot. And honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. Now, this isn't an amazing movie by any means, but it was actually quite well done and fairly entertaining. So I would say it's worth checking out, even if it's not going to become a favorite or anything. Overall, the acting was pretty good. There was some inconsistent acting, I think particularly from the main character's sister. I felt at times that she had done a decent job, and at other times not very believable. I was already a fan of Elizabeth Moss from back in her days in Mad Men. That was one of my favorite shows, and I think she was one of my favorite characters on the show. She did a great job there, and she does a really good job here as well. I feel like she portrayed the descent into madness admirably.
I found something that can prove what I'm experiencing. You need help, Adrian.
And as for the presentation, there were a lot of different ways that they utilized the invisibility that I felt were nice and subtle and yet effective. Unfortunately, I felt there was a little bit of an imbalance. Yes, the titular character is invisible, but I felt like they went a little bit overboard in it, in that he was extremely quiet as well. I mean, sure, somebody can be good at sneaking around, and in such a situation, they would definitely be very intent on maintaining stealth and moving quietly, but I feel like the movie went a little bit overboard in that regard. There's just no decent explanation for just how quiet he was the vast majority of the time. There were scenes where, yes, he was making noise from like creaking floorboards and stuff like that, but it seemed almost like it was deliberate, like he chose those moments to be heard. Now, this is something that they could have used even just a line or two of dialogue to explain away, using sound dampening technology as part of the same cloaking technology that he's developed, but they didn't really go that route. They didn't do anything to explain anything beyond the invisibility. So for me, it didn't quite work having somebody who can move silently and noiselessly through pretty much any environment, whereas anybody else is making the floorboards creak, or even just the shuffling of their feet. It was almost unbelievable just how quiet he managed to be. Also, there were a few scenes that were just a little bit too convenient. Overall, they avoided unnecessary convenience, as decently explained by this is when the characters choose to do certain things, but then there were a few things. Overall, they avoided unnecessary convenience, as decently explained by this is when the characters choose to do certain things. Although there were a few things, particularly later on in the movie, that just didn't play out in a way that I felt would have been natural. A character blunders and makes a mistake, but it's only seen by the wrong people. Just the timing of the mistakes are just conveniently inconvenient. Overall, these inconsistencies are very minor, and yes, they're convenient for the story's sake, but they're also not that big of a deal. It took me out of the movie a little bit, kind of ruined some of the immersion, but as a whole, I'd say it wasn't too bad. Some of the special effects for some of the invisible scenes were not the greatest.
Show yourself!
Surprise.
But I can forgive them, as I would say at this point there's not really a good way to portray some of the things they try to portray. So, given the limitations of what they're working with, short of developing actual invisibility, I don't see how they would have really had the means to do a whole lot better. That being said, there was some CGI animation that was a little obvious to me that it was CGI when I think it wasn't supposed to be. The story didn't really do much to surprise me, beyond the fact that it surprised me just how it was pretty good. I was expecting a bad movie. I was expecting a very shallow story, but they actually developed this one quite well. They thought it through. It was pretty clever at times as well. Again, it's not the most memorable, but it's serviceable. It does the job. It's entertaining. It's interesting. It's engaging. It tries to throw a couple of twists at you. Personally, I saw them coming a mile away. There were some twists that I thought of that I think would have been better, but that's common for me as a writer. It's rare for me to see a movie where I'm not constantly thinking about how I would do things different. That's one of the things I try to turn off, but unfortunately I just can't. If you're interested in hearing about that, let me know down in the comments. I will be happy to share some of my ideas with you. But that's entirely beside the point. But yeah, overall, I would say the movie was good. Not great, it's not perfect, but it's entertaining, it's enjoyable, and I would say it's definitely worth watching. Not necessarily something you need to see in theaters, so you could wait until it comes out on streaming or rent it at Redbox or something. But however you get a chance to see it, it's worth watching. You just don't need to rush out and do so. So yeah, the 2020 Invisible Man movie was a surprisingly decent movie. If you saw it, let me know what you thought down in the comments. Until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.